Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of Bhagavad Gita. We are going to take up the 25th verse, then go to the 26th verse, and today we will try to also reach 26 if it is possible. Otherwise we have already studied the 25th verse. We'll go to the 26th. Now we will begin our Bhagavad Gita with the chanting of one of the meditation verses of Bhagavad Gita. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanooramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. The live chat is activated. If you have any questions or doubt pertaining to the subject, you can type the questions or the doubts on the live chat. I'll try to answer those questions at the end of the class or in the next class. Now we shall chant the 25th verse and then go to the 26th verse. 25th verse of the second chapter. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi. We shall now chant it. I will chant in the beginning. You can repeat it after me. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi nanushochitumarhasi. Now the simple meaning of this verse is the soul is spoken of as invisible, inconceivable and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for this body. Knowing the nature of Atman, when you know the Atman is eternal, it will never die, you should not grieve over this death of the body or the destruction of the body, because in reality you are indestructible, you are eternal. So there should be no reason to worry. You should never worry. You should give up worry. Lord Krishna is so perfectly telling all of us there should be no worry at all. In whatever way you think, whatever way you lead your life, there is no chance to worry. Please do not worry. You may be concerned, you can respond, but you should not worry and you should not react. That's what Lord Krishna is insisting. There's no chance to worry. Do not worry. So now we shall go, though we have explained about this verse in the last chapter, we will discuss a little from different perspective and then go to the 26th verse. In this 25th verse, that is avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi. Lord Krishna is telling that in this Atman, the Paramatman or God who is in our heart, who is residing in our heart, who is everywhere, Atman cannot be perceived by any of the senses. He is not telling that Atman cannot be perceived. Here you should be noting that it is through our senses, limited sense organs. It cannot be perceived by any of the senses. And whatever does not come within the ken of the senses is necessarily unmanifested. It's very hard to conceive of a thing that cannot be perceived. Atman is therefore said to be unthinkable in that way. The four elements, air, fire, water and earth, can be sensed. You can't sense the ether, Akasha. They are seen to be undergoing modifications. As such, they are mutable. But the elements, Akasha, undergoes no modification. It is ever in its original state. Like this Akasha, so you should not confuse Akasha to the sky or something, space. It is the original matter which is there everywhere in the space, which occupies every part of the space. That is Akasha, the original matter in which everything is done out of. For example, see, if you take an orange, so you see a lot of space in it. The water content, the real orange is very less. In between the orange and that edible thing inside, there is so much of space. In the peel, there is so much of space. So in that edible thing, that particular thing which we eat, there is so much of space. In between the water molecules, there is space. In between the molecules, in between the atom, there is space. So space and space and space and space everywhere. So what is that material in which all the space is occupied? The original matter. Everywhere, everything is there. Nothing is empty. That original matter is called Akasha. So it's not space. It is something. It is the matter, original matter. That is called Akasha. So you can only compare the Atman. It is our Atman or our self is even greater or beyond this Akasha. So the best example given can be this Akasha. So like this Akasha undergoes no modification. It is ever in its original state. So like this Akasha, the original matter, the Atman which you are and I am, everybody is ever in its original state. So it's a comparison. It is not even Akasha. Don't get confused. It is beyond this Akasha. It's only a comparison, metaphor. So it is therefore said to be immutable. Elemental Akasha, which we now dealt, the fifth or the original matter from which all the other four elements comes, like the air, fire, water and earth. So it comes from this Akasha. So it is therefore this elemental Akasha is insentient, and Atman or Chidakasha is sentient. That is the difference, greatest difference. Akasha is insentient, but this is Chidakasha, consciousness which is beyond or even fills up this Akasha. That is Chidakasha. It is only Akasha, that is Chid Akasha. So that consciousness or Chidakasha is sentient, but Akasha, the original matter, is insentient. The greatest difference you should know. In every other respect, they are identical. Both being partless, they remain immutable. It ill becomes one to grieve over the immutable. So let us take the words of Sri Ramakrishna from the Gospel and understand this verse. Sri Ramakrishna is telling God or Paramatman or Atman or Parabrahman is, what is it like? It cannot be defined with words. One may be called upon to explain what the ocean is like. One may be called upon to explain what the ocean is like. Let us take the Indian Ocean or Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. So when you are trying to explain the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean or the Indian Ocean, what happens to a person who has never seen it? He has never seen the ocean in his life or a sea. So suppose somebody goes on to explain what is this Indian Ocean, vastness, who has never seen an ocean. The expounder can at the best say it is a vast sheet of water. Just like the small children will express how big was the aeroplane, how big was the pumpkin, they will stretch both of their hands and show. That's all they can tell. Above that, after that, what can they do? They can't. So words are limited to like that. So at the most they can stretch their hands so big, and they can open their mouth, they can open their eyes wide, gap open, like a chasm, the open and tell so big. That's all. So that's why here words and other things cannot explain Atman or the consciousness or whatever is that. So it's just like that. So Ramakrishna, by his simple example, made it so clear, isn't it? So one may be called upon to explain what the ocean is like to a person who has never seen the ocean. The expounder can at the best say it is a vast sheet of water. Defining God or Paramatman or Brahman or Atman is much more difficult, because if we cannot explain to a person what ocean is, that too in the small part of the earth, then what can you explain about the Atman or Paramatman or God or Parabrahman, who is beyond this ocean, who is beyond this earth, who is beyond this solar system, who is beyond this stellar system, who is beyond the Milky Way, the universe, the galaxies. He is much, much, much more beyond all those things, much more bigger, no end to it. So what can you explain about that? If it is so difficult to explain about an ocean, imagine how difficult it is to explain about this infinite Atman. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna has made it clear. What Brahman is like, what God is like, what Atman is like, it cannot be defined with words. One may be called upon to explain what the ocean is like to a person who has never seen it. The expounder can at the best say it is a vast sheet of water. Defining Brahman is much more difficult. But we should never think that it cannot be realized, it cannot be experienced, because you are that. You can experience that, but you cannot objectify it, because you are the eternal subject. So how can the subject make itself an object? So that is the reason it is told that it cannot be objectified, or it can be measured or immutable. All that means that it cannot be objectified, that's all. So don't get confused that it cannot be realized, it cannot be seen. It cannot be seen means through the eyes it cannot be seen, that's all, the indriyas. But it can be, you are that, you are of the nature of that, you can experience that. That is what it is being told. So with this basis, I'll try to explain about this, why we should not worry, because it is immutable, it is indestructible. So nobody can destroy it. That is what all through this Lord Krishna has told us. So then when it cannot be destroyed, when it is so vast, even it cannot be explained, it cannot be objectified. Where is the question of destroying it or killing it or cutting it or burning it? So Arjuna, your worry over the destruction of Bhishma or your Gurudev, that is Dronacharya, or your relatives, doesn't have any ground at all. So don't worry, do your duty. As Atma Swarupa, they won't get destroyed. Even so, in the next verses, Krishna is going to explain, even from the common practical standpoint of view, you need not believe in Vedanta. Even from that standpoint of view too, there is no scope for you to worry. From the highest standpoint of Vedanta and religion and philosophy also, there is no scope to worry. You can never worry, you should not worry. Nobody should worry for any reason. That is the thing which Lord Krishna is telling. Shochitum arhasi. You don't have this thing to worry. You should never worry. That's what Lord Krishna is telling. So now, with this background, so how Arjuna is being trained from the standpoint of Vedanta, from the standpoint of the common worldly or the practical view, how Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna, Lord Krishna is telling to tell Arjuna, do not grieve, do not worry. That means he is telling us too, do not grieve, do not worry. Whatever may be the condition, whatever may be the adverse situation in your life, whatever may be the difficulty, do not worry, do not grieve. You are the Atma Swarupa, there is no question of grieving. You are of the nature of bliss, you are of the nature of consciousness, you are the nature of knowledge, you are the nature of infinite knowledge, infinite existence. Where's the question for you to worry? So that is what Lord Krishna is telling. We will try to understand this verse from a little different perspective and then go to the next verse. And now what Lord Krishna is trying to tell to us, we shall just have a inkling through another perspective. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam chate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. This Atman is said to be unmanifested, beyond thought, beyond modification. Knowing it as such, it is not proper. It is not proper for you to grieve, Arjuna. This Atman is said to be unmanifested. We can't feel touch of the Atman anywhere. We can't feel the touch of the Atman anywhere. Avyakta means unmanifested. Similarly, achintya means unthinkable. You cannot catch it with a piece of thought. You cannot conceptualize it. Everything in the world we try to catch through two sources. One is through our thought and the other is our speech. These are the two things by which we try to conceptualize everything, understand everything. What are they? One is our thought and another is our speech. So you cannot conceptualize it. Everything in the world we try to catch through these two sources. One is thought. Just feel it. We try to get everything through the thought, and other is speech. Once you give a speech and a thought to enclose something, you say you understand that thing. We can do this with everything in the world. But with regard to this real nature of yours, consciousness or Atman or God, speech and thought recoil, unable to touch it. Now, when Sri Ramakrishna was trying to explain about the nature of Atman or Parabrahman, when the Kundalini would rise up from the Mooladhara and goes from the Mooladhara chakra to the Swadhisthana to the Manipura, then to the Anahata chakra, then to the Vishuddha chakra, then to the Agna chakra, Ramakrishna would go on explaining what is the nature, what are the visions, what are you going to see at the level of the heart. It is in the form of the light. You see the light, vision of the light. Then when you go to the Vishuddha chakra, what are you going to see? When you come to the Agna chakra, then after that he couldn't tell. At the most he could tell something or explain something up to the level of the Agna chakra. So there is a thin layer of something like a glass or a thin layer of Agnana, wheel, which is covering it. So you can directly see the Atman or Paramatman, Parabrahman, but you cannot explain. So when Ramakrishna wanted to explain, it would feel as if somebody is pressing his throat or covering his mouth. So there, Sharadanandaji Maharaj and other direct disciples would think, who is that stopping? Ramakrishna is so compassionate, he wants to tell about this Atman or Paramatman or God to us, but somebody is throttling the throat or they are trying to stop Ramakrishna, closing the mouth. That Divine Mother Kali may be mischievous, naughty. She is not allowing. Ramakrishna wants to tell. No, it is not like that. So it is just like here you can see, understand from this. So the Atman cannot be explained. It cannot be conceptualized by the words. The words recoil. They cannot explain it. You cannot objectify it. That is the reason. You You have to understand that clearly. So nobody is going to press or something. The words are not sufficient. The thought is not sufficient to understand this, to objectify it. That's all. So now you can see by these words, what is that? Once you give a speech and a thought to enclose something, you can say you have understood that thing. We can do this with everything in the world. But with regard to this Atman, the eternal subject, the infinite, or the Paramatman or God or Parabrahman, speech and thought recoil, unable to touch it. That is why it is unthinkable. In fact, now we can go to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which speaks of realizing the Atman in these words. Atma iti eva upasita. On this, Bhagavan Shankaracharya comments, Yahatu Atma Shabdasya iti paraha prayogaha. The use of particle iti in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is speaking about the realizing the Atman in these words, Atma iti eva upasita. Atma iti eva upasita. So that iti, the word iti, along with the word Atman or self, to which you referred here in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, when Shankaracharya is trying to explain in the text, only signifies that the truth of the Atman is really beyond the scope of term and the concept. Otherwise, the Shruti would only say, could have directly, instead of using all these particle iti, eva, upasita and other things, it would have directly said one should meditate upon the Atman. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is not telling meditate directly upon the Atman, but it is telling Atma iti eva upasita. So this particle iti, along with the word Atman, self, to which it is referred in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, only signifies that the truth of the Atman is really beyond the scope of term of the concept. Otherwise, the Shruti or Brihadaranyaka Upanishad would have directly told one should meditate upon the Atman. We have to use some word, so we use the word Atman. Because without using the word, you cannot communicate, you cannot express it. So that word, limited word, Atman, has to be used. Otherwise, how can you communicate? How can you make others understand? So you have to just keep quiet, mauna. So, but do not run away. Atman is not a thing. It is eternal consciousness behind all the things. That is stressed again and again here by Lord Krishna. Avyaktaha ayam. Achintyaha ayam. One beautiful verse demonstrating the profound depth or psychological insight occurs in the verse in Ashtavakra Gita. You know the famous Ashtavakra Gita. So, achintyam, chintyamanopi, chintarupam, bhajatya asau. So, what is this Ashtavakra Gita trying to tell? When you think of the unthinkable, when you try to think of the unthinkable, you resort to a piece of thought only. You are trying to think the unthinkable. So, when you think of the unthinkable, you resort to a piece of thought only. When you think of the unthinkable, you don't catch the unthinkable at all. That is what Ashtavakra Gita is telling. You formulate a thought, that is all. It is an object. Thought is an object. But this Atman or God is unthinkable, self, eternal self. So now you might have got a glimpse of it, that's all. I can't tell that you have understood it completely, but you got a glimpse, got an idea. So now this kind of subtle knowledge of the deep realities you get not only in Indian literature, it is found in our Hindu literature everywhere, but you may get an inkling, a small pieces of it in other Eastern philosophies like the Chinese philosophy of Tao and Zen Buddhism. Also in some of the Christian thoughts or the Muslim mystics. But these are only mentioned a little here and there, that's all, not in its fullest form. Not like in our great religion, Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. So it is not there in their official religions, formal religions. The thoughts are simply mentioned here and there in Tao and Zen Buddhism and Christianity and Muslim mystics, that's all. There is this truth beyond all conceptualization. This is the Atman, eternal self, the subject, the seer, not an object. Similarly, avikaryoyam, this is unchangeable. The whole world is changeable. This is unchangeable. The external world is simply a tissue of change. This Atman never changes, eternally the same. This is the one truth the world is seeking. What is that eternal changeless reality? Formerly we use the word God, but the word God has become involved in so many controversies. And ultimately some people said we don't want God. In fact, it was the German philosopher in the last century who said God is dead. Well, that kind of God has no status at all. But Vedantic God is quite different. The concept of God is something different. The Western concept of God is different. So they give up that. But when they hear about the Vedantic concept of God, they accept it. So God in Vedanta is, the concept is something different. It is the eternal self. It is always the witness of every event. Every yes and no is washed by the eternal self. Therefore, this has got a strong foundation and experience in your own self. Now, let us go to the experience of Ramana Maharshi, one of the greatest saints in Tamil Nadu, who lived in Tiruvannamalai. This was the experience of Sri Ramana Maharshi had when he was a boy of 16 or 17. The first and the last spiritual experience of his, when he felt, I am going to die. First, he became frightened, came home, lay down in his room at the floor and said to himself, I am dying, and he imitated the whole experience of death. Yes, I am just dying and I am dead. Then he found to his great joy. See, even in this Vedantic experience of death too, there is joy. The highest, the greatest experience which Ramana Maharshi is having the experience of death. But in the beginning it was fearful. He was afraid as a small boy of 16 or 17. But then he found his great joy, that he was still there to watch his death. I am deathless. The one who watches my death is always there. The one who watches my death is always there. That is my true self. That was his first and last spiritual experience according to his own words. Of course, he got it so easily because he had high spiritual development earlier with good vasanas, with good character, with good samskaras, earlier tendencies. So we may not get it so easily. All the other beings may not get it because he was ready for it. He had readied himself. He was competent for that, maybe from his many earlier lives. But even if you get a glimpse of the truth, yes, there is some truth in it. Work on it. That much is not enough for us to begin with. So, Tasmadevam viditvainam, knowing him to be like this. Now, you have not the experience, but Lord Krishna as the Lord, I have the experience, not only experience, I am that. So Lord Krishna is telling, I am telling you, out of my own experience or the knowledge, everything. Tasmad vidit evam viditvanam. So knowing him to be like this, Lord Krishna is telling. He has explained about the real nature of God, of Atman who is within you, your real nature. So Lord Krishna is telling, so tasmad evam viditvanam, knowing him to be like this, na anushochitam arhasi. It is not fit for you to experience. You should not grieve. It was not the word. It is not fit. It is not fit for you to grieve or worry. So this is the very important thing which you have to know. So nobody should worry. Lord Krishna is telling, is giving the explanation, argumentation. Now he will come down. Suppose you don't understand this Vedanta and all other things, the higher things about Atman. Even from the ordinary point of view, you should not worry. Why? Let us see what Lord is going to tell. That is the next verse. So now we are going to the 26th verse. We shall now chant the 26th verse and go to the meaning of it. The 26th verse is, first I will just chant and then we will chant together. Athachainam nityajatam. This is the 26th verse of the second chapter. Athachainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho naivam shochitumarhasi. From the highest standpoint of Vedanta, which I told about the Atman and Paramatman and everything, its eternal thing, non-destructibility, you cannot worry. You should not worry. You are not fit to worry. But even if you cannot understand all those concepts, you want to believe that Atman is not eternal, you are the body only. Even from that point of view, you should not worry. Why? How? Let us see the explanation what Lord Krishna gives. It comes down to the level of the world, practical. Because Vedanta and religion, Hindu religion, is the first and foremost condition for spiritual life, for religion in Hinduism is freedom, liberty. Swami Vivekananda tells. That's why you see so much of liberty, freedom in Hindu religion. At the social level, there may be so many restrictions. That is a social life, that's a different thing. But at the level of spirituality, anybody, everybody can think of God, Atman, Paramatman. There may be restrictions in some social behavior. That's a different thing. But nobody is stopped in Hindu religion from thinking of God, meditating on God, realizing God. So that is very, very important. Liberty, freedom. Freedom is given. So here Krishna has given the freedom to Arjuna to take whichever point. He doesn't force the idea of Atman, the eternality. He is telling this is the reality. But suppose if you don't accept it from even this point of view, from the worldly point of view, if you think that Atman is going to die, you are going to die, you will not be eternally there as Atman, all those things you don't want to understand. Okay, let us think that you think that Atman is going to die. You are going to die. This body will be destroyed. Even from that point of view, from the worldly point of view, from the practical point of view too, you should not grieve. You should not worry. How? Now let us see. This shloka is telling. Please repeat this after me. Athachainam nityajatam Atachainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam nityam va manyase mritam tathapitvam mahabaho naivam shochitumarhasi Okay, this is the 26th verse. We shall go to the simple meaning. First we will go to the word to word meaning. Even if you think that this self has constant birth and constant death, even then, O strong-armed Arjuna, it is not fit for you to mourn. You should not mourn, you should not grieve, you should not worry. You are not fit to mourn, you are not fit to worry, you are not fit to grieve. So no way you should worry. Should never worry, Lord Krishna is telling. So have this, whenever you get worry, whenever you get distressed, when you are in agony, melancholy, when you are in depression, stress, take these words of Lord Krishna. You are not fit to worry, you are not fit to mourn, even from any standpoint of view. Naivam shochitumarhasi. Now we shall go to the word to word meaning of this verse. It's beautiful. So whatever way you think, you cannot worry. No, you don't have the right to worry at all. That's what Lord Krishna is telling you. Nobody has the right to worry. No worrying, no mourning. If you want to enjoy worrying, you like to that go on always crying, go and cry. But in reality, you should not worry, you should not grieve, you should not mourn. That is what Krishna is telling. So, what is the word to word meaning of this verse? Atha cha, atachainam. How is it broken up? Atha cha enam. Nitya jatam. Nityam va manyase mritam. Tatha api tvam mahabaho na evam shochitum arhasi. Atha cha. However, manyase, if you consider enam, this Atman, Nitya Jatam, to be constantly born, Nityam Mritam Va, and constantly dying, Tatha api, even then, Tvam, you, Arhasina, Shochitam, should not grieve. Evam, like this, Mahabaho, O Arjuna, O Arjuna of great arms, strong arms. Maha means big, Bahu means the biceps and the arms. Strong armed Arjuna, Mahabaho. Tvam, you, Arhasi na Shochitum, should not grieve. So that is the word to word meaning. So he is telling all of us through Arjuna, Lord Krishna is telling, the Lord himself, not any ordinary person, a Tom, Dick and Harry is telling, but the Lord of the universe, Lord Krishna is telling, Lord Narayana is telling you, Natvam shochitum arhasi, naivam shochitum arhasi. You should not grieve, you should not worry, you should not mourn, you should not go to depression. You don't have the right to go to depression or stress or worry or grieve. You don't have the right because you are the eternal self. So however, O Arjuna, if you consider this Atman to be constantly born and constantly dying, even then you should not grieve like this. In these verses beginning from 26, Lord Krishna is giving a hypothetical argument. Suppose Arjuna does not accept the Vedantic teaching. So here, from this beginning from 26, Lord Krishna is giving the hypothetical view. Suppose Arjuna, you do not accept my view of Vedanta about this Atman, eternality and the non-destructibility of Atman. Hypothetically, you do not accept this, okay. So why? Because Lord Krishna knows that you should never impose any idea upon another person. He should gradually, you should be convinced, you should accept it. The Lord has given freedom to everyone. Every living being has a free will. So nobody will be forced upon. Just like any other religion, just like any other paths to God, nobody will force you. They will never tell you, if you don't believe, we are going to kill you, or you will be burnt in hellfire. No. Lord Krishna is telling, okay, if you don't accept this view, even from the other point of view, other perspective too, should not worry. So much of freedom is given. That is the speciality of Hinduism, freedom. So, suppose Arjuna does not accept this hypothetically, this Vedantic teaching, because Vedanta's approach is never to impose its view on anybody. You can accept it if you want, otherwise you are free to have your own view. It is a matter of experience. You cannot force anything. If you feel that is true, please come. If you have the conviction, realize it and enjoy the truth. Otherwise, nothing is forced upon you. Go and enjoy this world. So Krishna is giving a hypothetical argument here from starting with this 26th verse. Suppose Arjuna does not accept this Vedantic teaching that Atman is eternal, Atman is indestructible. So why? Because Vedantic teaching, especially the Hinduism, will never impose the teaching on anyone. It is a clean sharing of what the teacher knows with the student. He shares it, he discusses it, but he will never force any idea upon anybody. He should never. Freedom. It should be a very natural growth according to their inner urge, inner development. So now we shall study this beautiful verse. If however you think that the self is subject to constant birth and death, O mighty armed Arjuna, even then you should not grieve like this. Sri Krishna uses the word atha to indicate that Arjuna may want to believe the other explanations that exist about the nature of the self. There are so many school of thoughts, there are so many different perspectives, there are so many different views. So Lord Krishna doesn't impose anything, force his idea upon him. So even from that point of view, if you think the other way, so Lord Krishna uses this word atha. How did it start? Atha chainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapitvam mahabaho naivam shochitumarhasi. So that word atha is indicating that Arjuna may want to believe the other explanation. So many people, so many leaders of the other religions, other paths, other school of thoughts are telling so many different, the nature of the self in a different way. That's why that atha is to indicate that Arjuna may want to believe in those things. So this verse needs to be understood in the context of the philosophical streams existing in India and their divergent understanding about the nature of the self during Lord Krishna's time. So Indian philosophy has historically comprised of 12 schools of thoughts. What are they? 6 of these accept the authorities of the Vedas. 6 of the schools accept the authority of the Vedas. They believe in the Vedas. They are called Astikavada. Astika generally means that they don't believe God. No, that's not the idea. Those who believe in the Vedas, authority of the Vedas, are called Astikas. So there are 6. Historically, they comprise of, Indian philosophy is historically comprised of 12 schools of thought. 6 of these accept the authority of the Vedas, and hence they are called Astika Darshanas. What are they? What are the 6 which accept the truth of Vedas, authority of the Vedas? Mimamsa, Vedanta, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya and Yoga. So these are the 6 school of thoughts, darshanas, which accepts the authority of Vedas. I'll repeat it again. Mimamsa, which deals with the karma kanda of Vedas, doing the havan, rituals and all those things. That's called Mimamsa. Then it is Vedanta, which deals with the end of Vedas, or the knowledge portion, or the upasana portion of the Vedas is called Veda Anta. Anta means end. So Veda Madhya, Veda Prathama, the beginning of the Vedas and all the things which deal is Mimamsa, the Karma Kanda. Veda Purva is Veda Anta. So then what is the third, this thing, Darshana, or school of thought, which accepts the Vedic authority, Nyaya Darshana. Then there is another Vaisheshika Darshana. Then there is the Sankhya and the Yoga. So these are the 6 Darshana, school of thoughts, which accepts the authority of Vedas. Within each of these there are so many more branches. This group, main group, has so many different branches, sub-branches. And in between there may be some conglomeration or even mixing up of so many branches. So let us not worry about that. Within each of these there are more branches. For example, the Vedanta school of thought is further divided into 6 schools. What are they? Advaita Vedanta, Advaitavada, Dvaitavada, Vishishtadvaitavada, Vishuddhadvaitavada, Dvaitadvaitavada, Achintya Bheda Bhedavada. Each of these sub-branches of Vedanta has further branches. For example, Advaitavada is subdivided into Drishti Srishtivada, then Avachedavada, Bimba Pratibimba-vada, Vivartavada, Ajatavada. So Vedanta itself, in Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta has so many differences. So there are so many schools of thoughts. We will not go into the details of these schools here. Let it suffice for us now to know that all these schools of thought accept the Vedas as the authority of reference. Accordingly, they accept the eternal, unchangeable soul as the self. So whatever now Krishna told about that, they accept it. So now, Arjuna, if you believe in all these school of thoughts, then you accept the eternality, indestructibility of Atman. It's well and good. You will not grieve, you will not have doubt, you will do your duty. But suppose you don't accept it, you are free to not to accept, diverge from these two. So what are the other views? So the remaining 6 schools of Indian philosophy which do not accept the authority of Vedas. What are they? The Charvakavada, materialistic view, Charvakas. And other than that, which do not believe the Vedas are Buddhistic schools. In Buddhistic school there are different branches. What are they? Yogacharavada, Madhyamikavada, Vaibhashikavada, and the Sautantrikavada. These are the 4 different groups in divisions or school of thoughts in Buddhism. We do not accept the authority of Vedas. What are they? The different, first was the materialistic view, that is Charvakavada. Then it is the Buddhist. In the Buddhistic school we have the 4: Yogacharavada, Madhyamikavada, Vaibhashikavada, Sautantrikavada. 4 schools. Okay. Then Jainism. So Jainism also does not believe in the authority of Vedas. So each of these has its own explanation of the nature of the self, of the Atman or yourself or your body. Some believe this, the body is the true thing, Atman, then somebody, the subtle body is the Atman, like that. There are so many views. They don't accept the eternality like the Veda, authority of the Vedas. All those schools accept it. Now suppose you don't accept that and want to follow this group, even then, from their point to, from this divergent point to. So Jainism also doesn't accept. Charvaka, Bauddhavada, in the Buddhism there is this 4 group, and Jainism, each of these has its own explanation of the nature of the self. Charvaka, what is the Charvaka? These do not believe in the authority of just like Vedas, just like what Krishna explained now, eternality of the Atman, indestructibility of the Atman and other things. They don't believe in it. So who are they? I told ago. Now Charvaka, Buddhism and Jainism. And in Buddhism there are so many different groups. In Jainism there are so many different groups. Okay, now what is the Charvaka Vada? The first one, those who do not believe in the authority of Vedas, those who do not believe in God and Atman and everything. They are called Charvaka, materialists. Just like the present day atheists who follow the science and who do not believe in God. So Charvakas were even more stronger than that. Charvakavada states that body itself comprises the self. There is nothing other than this body. And consciousness is merely a product. According to them, consciousness or all other things, this life is a product of conglomeration of its constituents. Now that is Charvakavada. Okay, Jainism states that the soul is the same size as the body and hence it is subject to change from birth to birth. This is the belief of the Jainism. The Buddhist school of thought do not accept the existence of permanent soul, Atman, and instead maintain that there is a stream of renewed animation from lifetime to lifetime which ensures continuity of the individual soul. That is the idea of Buddhism. It seems that at the time of Sri Krishna too, then because Buddhism was not existent during Krishna's time, Jainism may be not with the name of Jainism, but it may be in a different way it existed at that time. the Shravanakas and other people. So during the time of Krishna, 30,000 years back, during the Treta Yuga, so the first is the Satya Yuga or the Krita Yuga, then during the Rama's period it was the Treta Yuga, sorry, I made a mistake. It was Treta Yuga of the Rama. Dwapara Yuga of Krishna. During the Krishna's period or Bhagavad Gita period, it is Dwapara Yuga. Dwapara Rosham. Treta, it is Rama. Dwapara Krishna. Then present is Kali Yuga. So during the time of Krishna, when the Bhagavad Gita was preached, some of all these thoughts, whatever it may be, not in the name of Buddhism, because at that time Buddha was not there. Buddha came later on, 2500 or 2800 years back. But Krishna existed even earlier, during Dwapara Yuga, 30,000 years back. So at that time of Krishna, when the Bhagavad Gita was preached, it seems that versions of Buddhistic philosophy, the earlier in the seed form, the versions of Buddhistic philosophy of renewed animation and non-permanence of the soul, it existed. Charvakas existed. Hence Lord Krishna is explaining that even if Arjuna subscribes to these philosophies, what is that? The renewed animation and non-performance of the soul existed. And also, just like the Jainism, the ideas which were in the seed forms, earlier forms, then the Charvakavada and other things. Hence he is explaining to Arjuna, if Arjuna subscribes to those philosophies of renewed animation of the self from life to life, or it gets destroyed and afterwards it will not be born again, this is the end of the life. Even if you think so, still there is no reason to lament. Still you should not worry yet. Even if you accept those views, you need not worry, you should not grieve, you should not mourn. Why should one lament? This is now explained in the 27th verse. The 26th verse, Krishna took over all those things, took us all through these things. And now in the 27th verse, he will explain us to the reason why you should not lament. Why should you not grieve? Why should you not worry? Now we shall go to the deeper aspect of this verse and study it in a little more different angle. Okay, as we told in this special verse, Atachainam Nityajatam Nityam va manyase mritam tatapitvam mahabaho naivam shochitum arhasi. The second chapter, 26th verse, Lord Krishna is telling, if you consider this Atman to be constantly born and constantly dying, even then you should not grieve like this, O Arjuna. In these verses, beginning from 26, Krishna is giving a hypothetical argument. Suppose Arjuna does not accept the Vedantic view, Vedantic teaching, what Krishna has explained now, because Vedanta's approach is never to impress or force any teaching on anyone. It's just sharing of what the teacher knows with the student. The student has to be convinced and he must accept. So all the different views and perspectives, because we don't get faith directly with just one teaching. If you have it, wonderful. Whatever now Krishna has told, if you believe it and go forward, wonderful. There is no reason to do all those things. But what to do? Our mind is full of doubts. We don't accept. We have so many doubts. Our conviction is not so strong. Our faith is not so strong. So to bring conviction, to clear all the doubts, Lord Krishna is taking up different views, giving us conviction slowly, gradually. So now Krishna, to convince and to bring Arjuna to the right perspective, is giving all the other views too. So you should note that in Hinduism, in our Sanatana Dharma, there is no imposition of teaching, no force. There is free will. You can accept if you want. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you may not be able to accept this concept of Atman, whatever I have told. You may conclude that there is no such thing called Atman. Just like the Charvakas and other people, Buddhistic view of those time. Buddhism was not there. The name Buddhism was not there, but that idea was there in the seed form in a different way. So if you don't accept Atman to be eternal, if you don't believe in the existence of Atman, because nobody has seen the Atman, and also Lord Krishna himself has told it is aprameyaha, that it cannot be seen, it cannot be measured. So you may believe that Atman may be a fragment of imagination. You may not be willing to accept that view. And there are other systems of philosophy also who do not accept this view of Vedanta. And there are certain philosophy, certain system which accept the Atman within the body, like a branch of Buddhism. They accept that there is Atman other than the body, but their philosophy is that the Atman is constantly changing, subject to birth and death. They believe in the Atman and they accept that the Atman is consciousness, but they say that it is not eternal consciousness. So it is a perishable consciousness. So Arjuna, you may believe in that way, according to their view too. You may believe in that Atman Nityajatam Nityam Ratam. It's called Kshanika Vijnanavada. One of the Buddhistic Vada or argument is Kshanika, temporary. Vijnanavada, which says that there is an Atman, appears and disappears like the strobe light. You have seen the strobe light, isn't it? If you go to some special functions and other things, there will be strobe light. So like that, the Atman appears and disappears. It just burns off and on, just like the signal car signal light. It is born and gone. Suppose you accept that philosophy, or there is another system of philosophy called the Charvaka philosophy, as I explained earlier. It's almost like modern science. So the Charvakas does not accept even a mind. They don't accept even the mind. Why? Because you can't see the mind. So we don't accept it. Whatever we don't see through our five senses, we are not going to accept it. That is the philosophy of Charvakas. And Hinduism is so liberal that they have given the place of rishis to the Charvakas, and they will not kill them or they will not hurt them. They will be allowed to propagate their views. People can accept it. So much of freedom was there in Hinduism. Nobody will harm them. So the Charvaka philosophy, where the Charvakas will not accept even the presence of mind, because the Charvakas will ask the proof for the existence of the mind. It does not accept the mind also. It does not accept intellect also, because I cannot see, I cannot understand. Where is the proof? So it does not accept. If it does not accept the mind and intellect, will he accept Atman? So the Charvakas will not accept Atman also. And according to that philosophy, this physical body is the Atman. That's all. That is the only reality, this physical Atman. So what is their philosophy? Rinam kritva ghritam pibet. Whatever you may deceive, you may stealthily do anything. Enjoy this life. Borrow money, have lot of debt. Whether you will clear the debt or you give back, don't worry about it. Borrow the money, enjoy this life. Drink ghee, not even eat a little. He's telling you can. Kritam pibet. Enjoy your life. Only when this body, up till body exists, you exist. After that, who knows whether you will come back or not. Don't think of papa punya, whether you are deceiving, stealing or killing or doing anything. Somehow, hook or crook, enjoy this life. That's all. That is their view. That is their philosophy. Charvaka. Materialist. Enjoy this life. Take a debt. Whether you will clear it or not, don't worry. Nothing. After death, nobody knows whether you come back or not. So why do you worry? Just enjoy this life. Even from that point of view, Charvakas will tell, why do you worry? No worry. Even from that, enjoy this life, how much ever you are. So even from that point of view, you should not worry. So that is the idea of philosophy of Charvakas, the materialist. It doesn't accept the mind, it does not accept the intellect. Where is the question of accepting Atman and consciousness and eternality and all those things? And according to the philosophy of the Charvakas, this physical body alone is Atman. Atman means this body, therefore he says body alone is the Atman. Other than that, there is nothing, there is no mind, there is no other than this body. Therefore, there is no one surviving after death of the body. Therefore, there is no heaven, there is no hell. Therefore, there is no travel after death. Therefore, there is no Shraddha. You need not do any Shraddha. It is not, the Charvakas will not believe in karma, Papa karma, Punya karma, Papa, Punya, other things, Shraddha, previous Janma, earlier birth, previous Janma, future Janma, nothing does he believe. This body is there, now you are living, enjoy this life. Don't worry about all other things. I am the body. What type of body? A temporary body, and the body is only Atman. So Krishna now is telling Arjuna, suppose you believe only in the temporary self, this body, which is the body, or the Buddhistic self. Like it comes and goes, it changes, consciousness changes. He says, even in such a case, if you have such a view, you should not get out of your duty, or you should not worry. This is called Abhupetyavada, giving a hypothetical argument. Atacha, Arjuna, suppose you believe in this kind of Atman, according to this philosophy, like Charvakas, Buddhists and other things, which is Nityam Jatam, which is born constantly, and Nityam Mritam, and also it dies constantly. Therefore, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. You believe that this body will die, and so many bodies are being born. Even if you believe like that, but according to Vedanta, you do not have birth or death. It is only changing of the body. Your Atman is eternal. You don't accept that, and you believe that I am subject to birth and death. Tatapi tvam naivam shochitum arhasi. So you should not grieve even then. You should not sorrow. You should not grieve. Even from that angle, you are not supposed to grieve. So whatever, if you believe in that too, if you don't believe in the eternality of Atman, consciousness and all other things, Parabrahma, if you take that we are going to die constantly, so what are the Charvakas telling? Why do you worry? Enjoy this life. Because who knows whether there is hell or not, or heaven, whether birth, after you are dead, you are gone. Everything stops there. That is their view. So even then they tell, don't worry, enjoy this life by hook or crook. So even from that point of view, from the other point of view, you should not worry. So no need to worry. You should never worry. That's what Lord Krishna is telling. So what a wonderful thing. From the highest point of view, Vedantic view too, there is no cause to worry. From this lowest point of view, there is no cause to worry. Then why do you worry, Arjuna? Through that, Lord Krishna is telling all of that, please don't worry. Be happy. Don't be miserable. Don't go into depression. Be happy always. These are the words of Lord Krishna. So we will end our conversation, take up the still more further explanation of this verse, and then go to the 27th verse in the next class. So now if you have any questions or doubts, we can try to answer it. We'll go to the live chat. I think there are no questions. Yeah, there are no questions. So we will end our conversation, because there are no questions, with the closing prayer. So we will chant one of the meditation verses on Bhagavad Gita and end our discussion for today. Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkrupatamaham Vande Paramanandamadhavam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.